I am bringing on Dan Reeve. Dan is a homeschool dad. He and his wife work with my wife and I in creating this whole idea of simplified homeschooling. But Dan's in the mix of it right now. He's got some amazing little kids. And we want to make sure that we kind of get both sides of this because I think it's really important. So I'm on the other end of things. I had some amazing, wonderful kids. They still are amazing, but they're not kids anymore. They're all adults. So we thought we'd kind of give a little bit of a different perspective here, depending on where we sit. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Dale. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So as a homeschool dad, you've been doing this for how long?
Boy, we've been homeschooling, I want to say 4 or 5 years now.
All right. So take it back 5, 6, 7 years ago. Did you ever think that you would be a homeschool dad?
Oh, no. I was raised in the public school system, had a fantastic experience, whether it be academics, extracurricular activities, sports, that type of thing. Always felt that was the only way to go. Never even considered homeschooling. In fact, my wife didn't even consider homeschooling, I don't believe, when we were first married either. So no, definitely not anything that we felt was hard for us. Obviously with Natalie and her education background, she was very well poised to do this. And but you don't have to be a teacher. You just have to be a parent. You just have to have love for your children and know how to reach the internet and read books and love your children. So, but no, certainly wasn't in the cards for us. But we kind of saw. That's an interesting question. I think it's a myriad of factors. We saw how busy children can get and how occupied they can get in more of the public school realm and almost not have much of a life, particularly as it pertains to sports, extracurricular activities. Those get very busy now. So we wanted a bit of more of a nurturing environment for our children. Also, there certainly were concerns about content being taught, that type of thing. And we just wanted to make sure that we were guiding our children's education. But probably the most important thing was just helping them truly foster a desire to learn, which sometimes in the public school system, again, there's nothing wrong with one approach or the other, but we felt that sometimes you get up early, you hustle out to school, and you're kind of in lockdown for a few hours every day, and you may not want to be there. Versus if there's an environment to foster a desire to learn things. Say, hey, we want to learn about squirrels today. Great, let's go learn about squirrels. Let's learn about how they eat, where they live. I'm just using that as an example,
sure.
Obviously.
It's a great one.
being flexible enough to help them have fun learning was probably the biggest driver for homeschooling. So, how about you? Were you homeschooled as a child?
No, I probably should have been. My schooling, from grade school all the way up, was not a good experience for me. And a lot of it just had to do with me. ADHD to the infinite degree, dyslexic on top of that, and nothing ever made sense for me in school. The teachers always put more emphasis on the answer than the question. And my mind was still back on the question going, well, wait a minute. Well, why don't we explore this a little bit longer? And the teacher's like, no, you got to know the answer. And it's like, well, but is that really what the answer is? And I want to explore this a little bit more. And it was so frustrating for me and for my teacher. So I would have probably have been like the ideal homeschool kid because I was really inquisitive. I really loved to look at things differently because that's how my brain worked. But we didn't know what homeschooling was then. Even when Michelle and I started homeschooling, 20 plus years ago, there wasn't a lot out there on homeschooling. And there weren't a lot of people doing it. So we kind of jumped into it early on in the system of homeschooling. Now there's amazing abilities at what you can do out there. But I agree with you. We've got so much more flexibility. We have so much more to do with our kids. And I think that's something that as a dad, I didn't realize that role that I had to play in my kids. And I don't know if that's something you're starting to see a lot as well, is we tend to focus very much on making sure food is on the table, rented or mortgages are paid, car payments are paid, all of those things. And so we're working towards that end. And then and the kids are off to school and mom's doing what mom's doing. And then all of a sudden it gets changed up and kids are home more and you see them more and they're engaged and they're asking questions, and you start seeing this and you're going, wait a minute, I've got probably a little bigger role in this whole thing than just doing what I was doing before. I don't know if you're finding that on your end as well.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah. The most ideal, at least that we found, is that I'm as engaged as I can be. I certainly have, a full-time job, right, that I can't be home. But yeah, definitely being as engaged as I can be and as supportive as I can be. I found that on that topic, I found that the mornings are critical for both my wife and I. The mornings are critical for her. She needs to take time every morning to self-develop, and we often, not usually together but separately, we'll try to get up as early as we can and do what we call our miracle morning, where we'll take our own time to self-improve, whether it be spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, taking 10-minute chunks in an hour to try to cover as many of those bases as we can. And how, as a homeschool father, how I treat that is her time is very sacred. I try to be the buffer as kids start waking up during that hour. If they do, don't bother mom. She needs that time because she's going to be with you the rest of the day. But if I may be in the middle of reading, say, scriptures, or if I may say, hey, come read scriptures with me, rather than saying, hey, don't bother me, go do something else. I try to incorporate them into what I'm doing, for a lot of reasons, for their knowledge, perhaps as an example. They may grow up seeing, oh, we saw my mom and dad putting first things first in the morning, and I got to be a part of that. Or maybe I'm in the middle of writing a journal entry and I may ask them, hey, I'm trying to recap our day yesterday. What was fun for you? Or go get your own journal. Let's do this together. So again, trying to give mom her own time, but also incorporating them into my own routines in the morning, rather than getting upset or frustrated that I'm not getting my own time. I'm going to have my own time the rest of the day, right? At the office.
And that is such a great help, I think, for moms, but it also helps your children see your motivation as a dad. And they're always looking for mom. They're always looking for mom. Is this done right? Did I do my spelling correctly? Did this and that? But I think when they start looking at dad for these little motivational type segments of the day, they become really meaningful. And I didn't really realize that for quite some time with the kids, how important that was. And then realize that, wait, there's some time that I get if I'm helping mom prepare for her, what she needs to for that day, doing whatever it is that she needs to have her time with. If I can take that, I get some really cool time that I normally wouldn't have taken. Even if it was like before school, there's a different mindset that starts happening when you start homeschooling as a dad. You start looking for these things. You're going, wow, this is a great opportunity.
Right. No, absolutely. How did you manage it?
So ours was pretty unique as well in that regards. I traveled a lot. I mean, sometimes 2 to 3 weeks a month I was gone. There was times when Michelle felt more like a homeschool single mom than a homeschool mom, and it was tough. She managed it with grace and amazing abilities. And so, so I looked for when I was home. I was home. I didn't have to go to the office a lot of times. Sometimes I had some other meetings elsewhere, but a lot of times I was home. So I looked for those opportunities where I could encourage and be that support and that help. A lot of times, you know, in our situation, I would come home from a trip and I either fell in line or I got out of the way, because those were really the two options. And so I learned really quickly that I didn't want to get out of the way. That wasn't what you want to do. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. So I fell in line and I learned some amazing things. I mean, when they said, "Hey, we're going to go and we're going to go to a nature hike," and that my schedule allowed me, I would go, and I would go, "Wow, this is actually really good learning and really amazing." And then that relationship that we had that I was able to gain with the kids one-on-one as we were talking and walking, or like you said, the morning time when you're trying to find times to motivate them and help them understand what's really important right then. I think that really helped in our regards. But we had a unique situation with my travel, so.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah,
What was one of your biggest concerns going in as a dad? What were the things you're like, okay, this is kind of like the line, and if we cross this, we're done.
Right. The first thing that comes to mind is sociality. I did not want my children to be socially backwards. It's one thing to learn cranially what you need to learn for a career or college or whichever direction you're going. But there's certainly so much more to life than just intellectual knowledge. There are people skills, there are interpersonal relational skills, all of that. Quite frankly, I had a little bit of a hard time understanding how homeschool would foster any of that, and how wrong I have been. In fact, so let me come back to one thought I was about to share. So we have found, and it certainly depends on which community you live in. We found, at least in our community, there are ample opportunities for social interactions outside of the home. Now, granted, we have numerous children. We have 5 children. There's plenty of interpersonal and social opportunities to learn how to get along, right? And how to work with other children. But certainly outside of the home as well, there are so many, there's a broad homeschool community that we found that there are play dates, there are numerous activities to get together. Children can still play sports at the public schools, even if they're not attending that public school. I mean, that's one of the tax benefits of paying property taxes and being able to have access to the public school sports programs, et cetera. So we quickly found that was not only overcomable, but this was my second point. We've found that it's, at least from our perspective, it seems like it's playing out better. Certainly it's not good to shelter your children, but there's also a level of protection from bullying, factors that are very detrimental to a child's psychological development and feelings of confidence and self-worth, that at least in the homeschool environment you can guide, you can control. Certainly can't shield children from anything, but so yeah, whether it be bullying, drugs and alcohol, off-color jokes, language, that type of thing, they're certainly going to be exposed to that and are exposed to that, you know, as they interact with friends, or we go out to parks and do activities outside. But especially in this day and age, with as difficult as things are becoming out there, it's been comforting to be able to create our own environment rather than throw the backpack on, send them off to school and hope that they don't get exposed to pornography that day, or they don't have just a psychologically crushing experience that sticks with them for many years, if not the rest of their life. So that's been helpful for us to be able to create that environment, if that makes sense.
No, it does. In fact, people would ask us about the socialization, and well, but your kids need that socialization. They go, don't worry about it. Michelle and I walk up and down the halls of our house and swear like a sailor. We lock them in the bathroom and we shake them down for their lunch money. We do everything that socialization in school happens. You know, we make sure it happens. And then they look at me like, oh, you're kind of right. There kind of is a lot of that going on in schools that is you know, they always think of, oh, well, your kids have to talk. Well, our kids talk, you know, our kids talk with friends. They talk with other people. We bring other kids in. One of the things that we did that was really cool, well, I shouldn't say we, Michelle started doing early on as the kids got to be 12, 13, 14, she'd bring in foreign exchange students from other countries of kids the same age. Yeah. I'm telling you, that was a great social experiment that has been amazing for our children because they learned different cultures. They learned about language. They learned about just different ways of thinking. I mean, there's just, we live in a fairly isolated, I mean, not you know, we're in a city and that, but I mean, we live in a kind of a little bubble in our own world, you know, and when you start bringing in some of these other socialization opportunities, it really,
Right, right.
it made a huge difference in how they then started thinking about other people. The younger kids could talk to the older kids almost on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
And it was just really, it was interesting to see the socialization myth, and there's some truth to it, but there's that same truth within a public school system as well. You can have the same issues, but that public school myth just melted away once we started seeing our kids actually being not only more social, but social in a much wider range of ages, where when they finally did start university at 15 and 16 years old, they could have conversations with their professors on a peer-to-peer level at that age, because that to them wasn't unusual.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I think one of the other concerns I had, in addition to socialization, was what kind of load is this going to put on my wife? How did you handle that? Did you have similar concerns? I mean,
yeah.
Right?
And so there's times, and what we learned right up front, we do this with a lot of different things. We've said, okay, we're going to just go full bore at this thing, and we're just going to, you know, do everything. Right. And then we realized that you as a parent can get burned out. And I saw this happening within Michelle's life. You know, getting burned out as a parent doing this can be done really quickly. So then you start as as the dad, as the fixer, as the guy who kind of can say, okay, I take on this project of scaling things back to where we start looking at what's the most important things. Let's do those, and let's scale back some of this other stuff. And then let's look at it at a time where I may be the guy who just throws up the referee flag and says, okay, time out. We need some time. You need some time. We're going to go on a trip. And that was one of the benefits that I had traveling, is there were times where we just packed up homeschooling and we just went out on the road. Because I was driving maybe up to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho or something for the week. And homeschool went there, but when it went away from home, it changed the dynamics and everything was scaled down. There were some basic things that needed to happen, but then fun happened and relaxation happened and other things happened. And you've got to look at that, and you've got to almost just really know your wife really well to just look at the situation and go, okay, it's time for timeout. And we've got to do that. I mean, you're doing this right now, right?
Right. Oh yeah. I come home and within a 5-second glance, you understand what kind of a day it's been. And I'll give Natalie a hug and a kiss and take over. And I learned that from my father. I remember sometimes he'd walk around and say, okay, kids, jump in the car. Well, let's go chase searchlights or whatever it was, you know, that we used to do back in the day. But I think, I mean, Natalie is phenomenal at what she does, but yeah, everybody has that. And so, yeah, taking those opportunities, and that again is a blessing to a father, that when we don't get that one-on-one time or father-kid time with all the kids, I'll take that anytime. Certainly we all have things we want to do. But one thing we have found is, as we compare notes with other parents that certainly have children in the public school system, they're sometimes doing homework till 9, 10 o'clock at night. We don't have that. We can enjoy our evening. We have found it, as we hear what the strain on time and the stress that a lot of the curriculum in the public schools is imposing on families right now, we feel blessed. And my wife would much rather have the entire day with her children and have our evenings freed up where we can do our impromptu learning together or just having fun, rather than maybe a few hours off during the day, but then the rest of the afternoon and evening is exhausting. And so again, there are pros and cons to both approaches, but we've certainly found that this is much more advantageous to our family. And I love those times where I can come in and give Natalie a break and take the kids and just spend time with them. And it can be simple: going on a walk, going for a drive, going to the basement, right? Just getting that break for her is critical. But I will. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, as your kids get older, what we found was they became 80% of learning happens outside of the curriculum-based stuff anyway. And we realized that very quickly. And so when I would start, as our boys started getting older, and they could start helping with woodworking stuff around the house, carpentry stuff, changing tires, changing brakes, changing oil, those types of things, we found those were really good breaks for my wife when I had those opportunities. I was going to do them anyway. And so, but they learned amazing skills in doing that. And that one-on-one time where you're teaching them differently, it's really, I think it's just something that sometimes only a dad can do on certain things. And even with the girls, I mean, the girls need to know how to change a tire when they're driving down the road and it gets flat, and how to do some of these other things. And our girls loved doing stuff that would be more deemed boy stuff if for shop and those kinds of things. It's mostly the guys in there. Although I always took home ec, and I took it for two reasons. There were really cute girls in there, and if there was a guy in the home ec room, the girls wouldn't eat much. They wouldn't eat very much, and so like we baked a cake. I had the entire cake to eat, so I mean I had plenty of food. So, but.
There's opportunity.
Again, that shows you how my brain worked during school. It wasn't really towards the academic ways. What else can I get out of this and learn from this? But the other thing that I thought was really important was when Dad says, "Here's Mom, and she's going through the spelling, and she's going through the math, and she's going through all of these different things, and the kids are listening, and for the most part, they're doing what they need to do." And I would listen in, and all of a sudden I'd hear some ruckus and some other things, and I'd go and I said, "What's going on?" And it changed the dynamics. Like, oh, it's like the principal just came in, and I didn't want to be the principal, but it was that type of thing. And it's like, oh, well, this is important because Dad's now talking.
Right.
And that needs to happen now and then. And so, and when you're at work all day and you come home and your wife's frustrated, say, "I can't get this done with this child. They won't do what I need them to do." That's when that one-on-time dad time can say, "Look, this is really important, and this is why. This is how it's helped me get where I am."
Sure.
And I needed this skill. And so even though it seems really hard right now, you're going to need this. It's going to help you. And by giving your mom grief, it's only going to cause more problems. What can we do to make that work out? And having that extra person to kind of give that nudge and that push to, that is kind of more of an authoritative figure, and that is different than the person who's doing it every day, day in and day out, I think really makes a difference. Have you found that yet with your kids?
Absolutely. And even when I can't be there during the daytime, we'll always ask in the evening, "Okay, what did you learn today? Natalie does, what's your high and low? What was your high point? What was your low point of the day? That's a topic around our table every night. But when I do get the opportunity to see what they've done, maybe it's a story they've written, or seeing my 5-year-old reading books, they're simple books, but he's reading books at 5. It's eye-opening to me how effective learning at home can be. Things that I didn't learn till 5th or 6th grade, and they're learning at the 3rd grade level, is spectacular to me. And they take pride in showing that work to me, or
that's what I was going to ask. So when you as a dad, mom again sees this day in and day out, and they show mom, and mom goes, oh great, and she's she moves on to the next subject and that. But I think it's really cool, and we're seeing that with our grandkids now, when our grandkids show us things like this, and we just go wow, and their little faces just light up. It's like, wow, okay, mom said it was really good, but now other people are starting to validate me, and people who I respect, like dad. And it just, I think it changes the way they start feeling about their assignments, and that when they can have that. And I think that's a role that we as dads can really play a big part of, is that cheerleader, not only to mom, because we've got to be so supportive there, but the cheerleader to our kids, and just letting them know how amazing their progression is in this.
Absolutely. It's critical. And it goes without saying, the opposite is going to be extremely detrimental if that's happening. If one parent is on board with homeschooling, the other is not, the children certainly can't see that. It can short circuit. It can do so much negative yardage, if you will. And so, supporting Natalie and what she does every day is crucial. And sometimes being the lawman, if you will, of enforcing, making sure that hey guys, mom is taking a lot of time trying to help you understand these things that you're going to use for the rest of your life. Look at how much she loves you and how much she's trying to do for you. And so encouraging them that way, like you said, the principal walks in the room and, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Dad's on board too. We'll do this. But yeah, definitely the encouragement on their side, on the children's side, it goes back to that fostering that love for learning, that oh, this is something that my parents value and appreciate in me. That's definitely something that makes them want to continue doing it and thrive. So.
Yeah. So, and that brings up a really good point on, you mentioned, there are times when mom just says, look, dad, you're going to have to just put aside all your differences and everything else. I'm going to homeschool our kids. And they may not be on the same page. And in that case, if that is the case, I'm okay with that, because, we all grow up with different experiences. And until we experience this for a little while, a dad, it may not be okay with this. I was actually the one pushing Michelle to do this, and she was like, I don't think I can do this. I go, I think we can do this. I really do. Now, I would always say, I think we can do this, knowing that I think you can do this, And so I was always on board, but I'll tell you, there are a lot of dads who aren't. And if that is the case, I really would strongly encourage mom, if you're listening to this, or dad listening to this, to just fake it until you see the results of it, because it is detrimental to a child if they see this friction between mom and dad about something that's so vital as to how they are progressing in life in their knowledge base. Because it has nothing to do with schooling. It has nothing to do with the math. It has nothing to do with the spelling, those types of things. This is gaining knowledge as human beings and understanding how important that is in directing us to that kind of that purpose and that thing that lights us up. That's what this is all moving towards. And as a dad on the back end of this, where I've seen that in my kids, now I can just be the biggest cheerleader for this forever. At the beginning, it was kind of scary, and where you're at, it's kind of, you're probably at the point where you can start seeing some results. But, I get given a project at work, and it's maybe a 2-3 month project. It'd be a long project. And at the end of that 3-month project, it's done. And I get, well, great. And I'm finished. Well, you don't have that with your children's education. This is ongoing. This is years in the making. And what you don't see at the end until you get there is the amazing journey that happens, but the progress and the struggles that make it all worthwhile along the way. That's where I'm at now. And the encouragement to any dads out there is let it go, let it roll, let it, be there, be the support, provide curriculum ideas. I was really good in certain subjects. As hard as school was, I loved history. I loved, I loved math. Math was really hard for me being dyslexic, but I really liked math. And there was things that I could then help with the homeschooling curriculum wise. But in reality, it's really this building of this human being into this person that they need to become, and your journey doing that. And that's hard to see because sometimes it doesn't look pretty. It looks pretty rough. And you're going, this is not working for us.
Well, and you and Michelle have been inspirational to us in that way to see how your children have turned out. We are certainly starting to see that in ours. And it's not the crack the whip to get them to go, do their learning time. It's sometimes I'll wrap up what I'm doing in the morning, and I'll walk into the area where they have their desks, and one or two of my daughters is already down there starting her learning on her own. Yeah. Right. And so there's so many facets to that. The advancement, I'm not tracking, how they compare to where they should be in the public school curriculum. I'm sure Natalie has a better feel for that. But going back to what I previously said, very impressed with what they do know, but mostly how much they already are starting to enjoy learning and love doing it. It's not a drudgery. Some days it is. I mean, nothing's perfect, right? But they enjoy it. Even when we're on vacation, they still do their learning time with whomever's watching them. And my wife and I will check it over FaceTime, right? Oh, hold that sheet really close. Let's see how you're doing, right? And they still do it, and they enjoy it. And so it is neat to already be seeing the benefits just at, with children under 10 to see the progress they're making, not just academically, but socially. They're fun, energetic, bright kids, and it's a privilege to be their dad, and it's a privilege for both of us to see them growing and take part of that. And hopefully someday they end up half as good as your kids, and we'll call it a
Thank you. That was, what really is cool is to watch these little people, these people, them develop into these little people, and you start going, okay, this is really cool. And one of the things Michelle did really well was, we call it throwing spaghetti against the wall. She would just splatter all kinds of different ideas out there. And some of them, I'm like, oh, I really like that. Can I be a part of that? And other parts, I'm like, no, okay, you can handle those areas. Or we brought in tutors and mentors on the areas that the kids wanted to excel in, that we had no clue what we were doing. Sure. And like you said, then on the social end, they participated in high school wrestling, high school track and field. They did all kinds of other stuff that helped develop those things. And you go, wait a minute, this is working. And so in kind of wrap up then, what are some of the lessons that you've learned as a father, or that you would hope that others who are thinking about doing this should learn right off the bat and start implementing into their system?
It's a good question. Well, kind of some of the key points that we've addressed. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid that your children won't be socialized, right? In fact, you get that opportunity to guide that socialization. It sounds strange, but early on you can help pick their friends rather than have them be in a school of hundreds of who knows what influences are going to be around. So don't worry about the socialization. don't worry about the academics. Even if all your children did every day was read classics and read, the basics that are out there, and have the opportunity to find learning online or books, etc., their brains are engineered to learn and to develop how they need to develop. But then also, just childhood is so fleeting. I think sometimes as a father, it's tempting. You come home from work, you're exhausted, you want to turn on Sports Center, you want to just disappear, right? I'm already seeing how fast childhood goes by, and I feel grateful that I get as many opportunities as I get to help my children learn a new thing, or talk about experiences they're having, and have that time with them. It's going too fast already, and I don't want to miss any of it. So I would encourage, if anybody out there isn't quite there and they feel it a drudgery, they feel it, they'd rather be practicing their golf swing, that's fantastic. But boy, these, like you said, these tiny people, these precious souls, they need us. They need a mother and a father. They need that nurturing and that wisdom that hopefully we can impart. So I'd say, and this is to me as well, always be reevaluating what is most important. In 10, 20 years, you're going to look back, how did we spend our time, and what would have made the most difference? That's what I'd say. So
and that's sometimes hard to look that far ahead, because again, you sometimes don't even know where you're going to be 20 years from now. You hope that you've progressed in your career. You hope, these types of things. I mean, you got plans and but you're not typically setting these kinds of plans and goals and that are outside of what you need as a person to grow, to help others grow in a different way than you ever thought you would do it. And one thing that I learned really a lot of, that's really actually helped me a lot in my career, is to just not worry about all that little stuff, like you had mentioned. It's okay. It's okay that you come home and you said, what happened with school today? And mom said it was a disaster. We just folded up at 8, 9 o'clock and we just colored and we just watched some really fun YouTube stuff on some learning. And you're going, you could go, wait a minute, that's not what's going to help my child. You can just go crazy with it. Or you can go, you know what? I wish I had a day like that. And I probably need a day like that every once in a while. Good job. I mean, that was, and it just probably reset everything. And she goes, yeah, I feel a whole lot better. I think tomorrow we're going to be able to really get at this. And you make it up so quickly. I mean, that's the thing. When you can take, our oldest child started homeschooling at 13. In 3 years, at 16, she had a full ride scholarship to university. And from that point on, she was valedictorian. I mean, she was, you name it, she was it in college. You don't have to worry about, oh, my kid's behind. There is no behind. There is no ahead. There is what your child is. And don't look at saying, oh, well, their child went to school at 15 and 16 at university, so I've got to make sure mine does that. No, that drove me crazy in the homeschool program. Everybody would try and say, what are you doing? I need to do what you're doing because it's working for you. Yeah, it's working for me because it works for my children. Now, if some of it might work for your children, but do what works for your child. Understand that process. That's what simplified homeschooling is all about, is helping you create those processes of understanding the right environment and the child's personality and teaching that style and all of those different things for a reason. They're not to say, you've got to do this, this, and this. It's got to put these foundations in place first, and then the other is so much easier to do. And you don't have to, you're not stressed. Don't be stressed. Don't be stressed as a dad. Don't be stressed as a, somebody in your career. Just take stress out of your life as much as possible. It happens. But I learned not to worry about it. And I'm telling you, it helped tremendously in my career by just saying, I don't get that. I don't need to get that. It's okay. I'm not going to worry about that. So very good.
Dale, as always, you and Michelle are models to us of where we're going, where you've already been, and it's exciting to see how your children turned out and glean from you what you've been doing, and hopefully it's working well for our kids. It already seems like it's working.
It is. I love watching your kids because they have that light. It's like they just beam and they're excited about life. And a lot of times kids just aren't, because like you said, when you got to do homework till 9 o'clock at night, there's not a lot of excitement to life.
No.
You know, it's not what I'd want to do. And right. I didn't do it, even though I was probably had some assignments and times when I should have done it in order to get my grades the way they needed to be. This isn't for me, guys. So I appreciate that, Dan. Thank you for your time. Thank you. I hope this is helpful to other dads and moms that are out there that are trying to figure out their roles. And we'll probably do this again. Maybe we'll do this with some other dads. And I don't know how many people we can get on at one time, but it would kind of be fun to have kind of this dad roundtable of ideas. I think that'd be kind of a cool idea. So we'll see what we can do in the future. But thanks again.
Thank you, Dale.
All right. Enjoy your day.
You too.
Bye.